What is up, TBS crew? It's your boy Steph, back with another reaction. This time we have Creepypasta Jr. I've been hearing strange noises outside my apartment. Creepypasta, uploaded November 9th, 2019. Now, because I have an apartment, this might resonate with me. Like, it might, I might feel some type of relation to this video. I hope not, because I haven't heard no strange noises outside of my apartment. Knock on wood. But we're going to give it a listen. Y'all already know all the important links will be down in the description. Without further ado, let's get into it.
I was sitting in my living room watching a bit of TV when I first heard the strange sound outside my window. It sounded like the scraping of metal on concrete. I glanced over at the clock on my wall, which read 1:32 a.m. The scraping only seemed to sound briefly before the silence returned like an ebbing wave. Naturally, my curious nature wondered at the cause of the random sound. Yet my laziness kept me rooted in my place on the couch. I thought that the wind had to have been the culprit. I've seen plenty of things being tossed around by a strong gust of wind before, all of which also caused an enormous ruckus. I relaxed back into my couch, and as time passed, I eventually drifted off to sleep. The following morning, I cursed myself for falling asleep once again in the living room, while my alarm blared from the distant bedroom. I exhaustedly peeled my sore body off of the couch, hopped into the shower, and got ready for work. As I stepped out of my small third-floor apartment, I locked the door behind me and descended the steps.
I wanted a third-floor apartment.
Living in an apartment isn't always the greatest,
I'm on the
but
second.
it was cheap, and this place had a third-floor unit available.
I wish I did.
The third floor was the top floor for this style of apartment complex.
It usually is.
And as such, being on top kept the neighboring noise level to a minimum.
Right.
I strolled along the pavement and rounded the corner of my building. I glanced up and saw my balcony, which faced a small courtyard/community area. To my immediate left was an in-ground swimming pool for residents to use. Living this close to a swimming area wasn't the best, especially during the summer months.
All the kids.
I can sometimes still hear the frantic, echoing screams of children.
Yep.
Thankfully, with summer behind us, the pool had been closed and covered for the coming winter months.
Right.
As I mindlessly stared at the pool area, I noticed that one of the nearby metal chairs had been pushed away from the others. The source of last night's random sound, I assumed.
Right.
I continued my walk towards my car and made my way to work. When I had arrived home that evening, as I was walking towards my apartment, I noticed that the chair had been realigned with the others. Presumably, one of the maintenance workers for the complex had put it back in its place. I paid it little mind as I climbed the stairs and entered my apartment. My evening routine isn't very exciting. I usually spend the majority of my nights either fused with my couch in the living room or browsing the internet in my bedroom. Much like the previous night, I was mindlessly watching TV once again, when that same exact sound echoed from outside. The sound of the metallic legs of a chair sliding across concrete was unmistakable. I tiredly looked over at my clock. 1:45 a.m. While I had already determined the cause of the sound, the fact that it happened twice at roughly the same time made me raise an eyebrow. I rose from my seat and slowly dragged my feet over towards my balcony door. I glanced out towards the pool area. With how little light there was outside, seeing anything identifiable was difficult. I could see the outline of the pool and the space around it, but not much else.
Don't go outside.
Everything was shrouded in a layer of darkness.
Don't go outside.
I squinted my eyes and could just barely make out one of the chairs outside that seemed to be out of place from the rest. Once again, I chalked it up to the weather and made my way to bed. The following morning was a repeat of the last, though minus the back pain from sleeping on the couch. As I passed by the pool area on my commute, I saw that the same chair had in fact been moved. I pondered why the wind seemed to favor that chair in particular over the rest. I shrugged it off and went to work. Again, same as before, when I returned, that chair had been placed back in its original position. I wondered if the worker was growing tired of repeating the same task over and over again. That night, the sound came once again, and it happened while I was in the middle of grabbing myself a glass of water from my kitchen nearby. I set the glass down and walked over to my balcony door. I slid the door open and stuck my head outside. The biting cold air ripped through my thin t-shirt and chilled the skin on my face. I glanced down at the pool area and I saw something. There was something drinking from the pool. At first glance, it seemed like a dog, what with how dark it was. As I stared at it, I felt my balance slip, and I leaned into my glass door, causing a thud. I reflexively gritted my teeth, and when I looked back towards the pool, whatever it was that was drinking from it was now sitting up and appeared to be looking right at me. It reminded me of a deer in the woods, how they crane their necks at the sound of the slightest noise. Instead of scampering off, though, it just remained stationary.
It's gonna come towards you, ain't it?
A new sound echoed into the night from somewhere outside, and whatever it was began to make its way back the way it came.
Good.
It passed by the lone chair and climbed up over the fence nearby. When it did, was when I realized that I wasn't simply looking at a dog of some kind.
Nope.
Dogs don't climb fences like it did. The shadowy form seemed to slowly shift up along the fence, then over it, in one smooth motion. Not to mention, it seemed to encompass the entire length of the back fence, which had to have been nearly 6 foot tall. I shut my balcony door and slowly stepped away. I tried to process what I had just witnessed, but instead rationalized it as some kind of wild animal. I finished my drink and went to bed, but not before checking to make sure my front door and balcony was tightly locked.
You better.
The next day, as I was leaving for work, I entered the pool area and looked around. Nothing seemed out of place aside from the chair. I walked over to the tall privacy fence where I'd spotted the animal leaving. I studied it for a moment. The other side led to a creek on the edge of the apartment complex, which then extended into a small patch of woods. The thought it might have been a bear searching for water crossed my mind, but I had never seen a bear in these parts before.
Right.
I placed the chair back in its original position near the fence and went to work. That night, I sat in front of my TV more alert than usual.
I'll bet.
Despite my readiness, I didn't hear that sound of scraping metal. I waited until 1:45 rolled around and still no sound emanated from outside. At roughly 2 a.m., I figured maybe the animal had gotten spooked and refused to come back. Just as I was rising from my couch to head to bed, I heard a new noise. There was a light thud against my balcony door. I paused. It wasn't a loud thud, more like a slight tap, but was enough to catch my attention. I stood there in my darkened apartment, motionless. I waited, hoping that what I had just heard was in my head. Then a few seconds later, another tap sounded. I turned around to face my balcony door. The hanging blinds in front of the door were shut, so I couldn't see outside. I cautiously approached, wondering what in the hell could be tapping on my door all the way up here. Despite the previous day's events, the connection between the animal and this tapping noise didn't register in my head. I just couldn't imagine an animal scaling the side of a building. I stood in front of my balcony door with bated breath, my hand extended out towards the pull rod for the blinds. I could feel a pit forming in my stomach as my hand drew near. I reached the rod and pushed it aside slightly. When I did, I fell back onto the floor, my heart rate and breathing accelerating rapidly. There was a face, on the other side of the glass, peering into my apartment. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before. It was smooth, almost human-like in shape, but it clearly wasn't a human face. Bulbous eyes shifted rapidly in its skulls as if it were a computer trying to take in everything it was seeing. Although its head was covered in a smooth, pale skin, the rest of its body, from what I could see anyway, seemed to be covered in a patchy fur. Its mouth seemed to be pursed together, almost like it was going to whistle. The breath it produced was beginning to fog up the lower half of my glass door. After a few moments, its jittery eyes locked onto mine and they stopped shifting. Then, a slimy black tongue protruded from its narrow mouth and began to press and trace around my balcony door. A disjointed hand lifted towards the glass, and it tapped on the glass with a sharp clawed finger. When I heard this, I pulled myself to my feet and ran for my phone. I wasn't sure who I was going to call or what I was even going to say, but as I grabbed it, I turned to look back, and it was gone.
For now.
That thing had vanished into thin air. I held my phone tightly and walked over to the door. It was no longer there. There was absolutely no sign of that thing whatsoever. It's been a few days since that night, and I haven't seen or heard anything at all. I'm not sure if it's waiting for something or if it had simply just moved on to a new location. I don't know what that creature was or where it came from, but I'm just glad my lease will be up in a month. Hopefully, I'll be able to find a better place to live. Somewhere far, far away from here.
Who do you call in a situation like that? If it's an unknown creature, I mean, you probably can't call the police or animal control because you're not even sure if it's really an animal. It looks like a dog, which is an animal, but it's probably not. Who the fuck would you call in a situation like that? That's a good ass question. But tell you what, if you would have approached it while it was looking at you, while it was drinking from the pool or the fountain or whatever, and it got you, you would have deserved everything. I'ma leave it at that. Y'all understand where I'm coming from, right? You go out there, you see this unidentified creature, this figure out there, and you don't know what the fuck it is, but it comes around, presumably every night around the same time, moving shit, drinking from this fountain or pool, and you wanted to go outside and investigate it, and it came to your window, and it almost got inside your house, and it almost got you. I'm gonna leave it at that. Buddy was fucking up. He saved his own ass, though, but he was fucking up badly, almost fatally. Thank you so much, guys, for watching my video. If you enjoyed the reaction, leave a like, a comment, and share the video. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, join the TBS crew, and tap that bell icon so you will get notified every time your boy Steph drop new content, which I do on a weekly basis. That is all I got for y'all this time around. Your boy Steph is out.